Her suitcase was by the door. No, not hidden. Not packed in a rush. It stood there proudly, zipped, polished, with a silk scarf tied neatly around the handle. Like it was waiting to be photographed. She didn't expect me home that early. I stood in the hallway for a full minute just staring at it. Her keys were gone from the hook. A cab engine purred outside. The smell of her perfume was still thick in the air, too fresh for a goodbye. Then I noticed the note. Folded once, placed carefully on top of the dining table under a wine glass like some kind of twisted paperweight. I didn't touch it. I could read the first line from where I stood. Please don't make this harder. There was nothing else. No explanation. No apology. No, I'll call. I didn't sit. I didn't speak. I just walked to the bedroom. One of the closet doors was open, the side with her dresses. Empty hangers swung like wind chimes in an invisible breeze. I counted 11. 11 outfits I'd complimented her on. 11 things I paid for. 11 nights I thought we were fine. She even took the silver necklace I gave her for our non-anniversary dinner, the one we celebrated on a random Tuesday after a fight. She'd cried that night. Told me I was the only man who truly saw her. Apparently, so did someone else. It wasn't the leaving that hit me. It was how calm everything was. She hadn't escaped. She'd planned it. This wasn't desperation. This was choreography. And then there was the envelope. Thicker than the note. Marked final papers. That's all. She didn't even write my name. As if I was already erased. Inside were the divorce documents. Signed. Notarized. And one extra sheet, a photocopy of a plane ticket to Miami. Departure, tonight. Passenger, her. +1. I checked the timestamp. She'd printed it 3 days ago. That means for 72 hours she had breakfast with me, laughed at my jokes, kissed me goodbye, and said she'd be working late, all while knowing she'd already chosen a different bed. I didn't flip the table. I didn't scream. I didn't call her. I just stood there. That's when the door opened again. She came in. Not because she forgot something, no. She thought I was gone. I should have been gone. She froze when she saw me. Her hand was still on the doorknob. I looked at her. She didn't look at me. I didn't want to do it like this, she said. But she did. Because if she didn't, she wouldn't have. I walked past her. She didn't move. I brushed her shoulder and felt her flinch, not because she was scared, but because she was ashamed. Or maybe embarrassed she got caught mid-escape. She didn't ask where I was going. I didn't say. The door clicked behind me. But I never heard her lock it. Not this time. I didn't drive. I walked. 2.5 miles through the neighborhood, through the trails by the lake, through the old park where we once carved our initials into the back of a bench that doesn't exist anymore. It had been replaced by a newer one, sleek, metal, anonymous. Just like her. It started to rain somewhere around mile 1. Not enough to drench me, just enough to make everything feel heavier. I let it. The air smelled like pine and gasoline. A boy on a scooter passed me and waved. I nodded back. For a brief moment, it felt like I was still a person. Then the reality of the envelope in my pocket pulled me back down. I wasn't shocked she left. I was shocked at how methodically she erased me. When I got back to the house, hours later, it was quiet. The cab was gone. So was her car. I should have felt something, but the numbness was already deep. I noticed one strange thing immediately. The hallway light was on. I hadn't left it that way. I never leave that one on. I walked slowly through the rooms. Every instinct told me I was alone, but something was wrong. There was a faint smell, cologne I didn't own. Not one she'd ever worn either. Sharp. Musky. Expensive. And it was strongest by the staircase. That's when I saw it. A man's watch. Left on the corner of the banister. Stainless steel. Not new. Slight scratch across the clasp. It hadn't been there before. I would have noticed. He'd been in the house. Not just in her life, in her home. Suddenly the taste in my mouth changed. I wasn't angry, not in the way you'd expect. I wasn't picturing them in bed or laughing over wine. I was picturing him standing barefoot on my hardwood floor, maybe opening the fridge, maybe looking at the photos on the mantel and thinking he has no idea. He was right. But he'd left something behind. A mistake. I picked up the watch and turned it over in my hand. No initials. No engraving. Just that scratch. A small, careless fracture in an otherwise polished thing. I put it in a drawer. Not out of spite. Out of curiosity. Because now I wanted to know what else he forgot to take with him. I checked her browser history next. I know it sounds cliché. But I had to. It was still logged in. She always used the guest profile at work. She never thought I'd look. There was a folder in her bookmarks called Meetings. Inside were 6 links. All private booking platforms. All rentals, houses, condos, weekend retreats. All within a 2-hour drive. One of them had a calendar reservation for 2 nights next weekend. Under the name J. Crane. The same name listed as a secondary guest on her flight confirmation to Miami. I clicked on the property listing. It was a cabin. Secluded. Modern. Glass walls. Outdoor shower. I stared at the photo longer than I should have. Not because of what she was doing, but because of what she wasn't. She wasn't hiding anymore. And that meant I didn't have to pretend anymore either. That night I didn't call her. I didn't delete the files. I didn't rage or cry or break things. I opened the drawer. I looked at his watch again. I imagined him checking the time on it while she smiled across from him, lying to me in real time. Then I made a choice. Not a revenge plan. Not a trap. A decision. I would wait. Just a little longer. Because sometimes the most devastating thing you can do is nothing at all. And that's exactly what I was about to do until she came back before Miami. Unexpectedly. And she wasn't alone. It was 2 nights before her flight to Miami. I'd already decided I wasn't going to be around to see her leave. I was planning to quietly check into a hotel, maybe somewhere far enough that I couldn't hear the echoes of our life collapsing. I didn't want to confront her. I didn't want one last fake hug or some rushed half-apology that only existed to clean her conscience. I just wanted space. But fate or whatever sick architect was designing this had other plans. It was Friday. Late. Rain again. Same light drizzle, same haunting calm. I had just finished folding a stack of laundry I wasn't even planning to wear, just something to keep my hands busy. Then I heard tires on gravel. Not a cab. Her car. I didn't move. I stood in the hallway like a statue, frozen between instinct and impulse. I should have gone out the back door. Should have slipped into the garage, into my truck, and vanished like I'd planned. But instead I waited. Not out of anger. Out of curiosity. The door opened. Her heels clicked against the tile like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't found the note. Like I hadn't seen the ticket. Like I wasn't supposed to exist anymore. She didn't notice me at first. She was laughing. Talking over her shoulder. A man's voice answered her. Confident, slightly amused. Casual. Then they both stepped inside. And stopped. I was standing 3 feet from the foyer. No light. Just me. Silent. Ramona froze. The color drained from her face like someone had poured bleach through her veins. Her companion didn't freeze. He looked confused. Not panicked. Not ashamed. Just inconvenienced. I recognized the cologne before I recognized the face. It was him. The watchman. He was younger than I expected. Late 30s, maybe? Trim beard, expensive coat. The kind of guy who smirks by default. Ellis, Ramona whispered, as if saying my name too loudly would shatter her illusion. I looked at her. Then at him. I didn't speak. I didn't blink. He cleared his throat. Didn't know you'd be home, he said, like he was commenting on a dinner reservation that had been double-booked. I turned and walked to the kitchen. I didn't invite them in. Didn't ask questions. Just opened the fridge, poured myself a glass of water, and leaned on the counter. She followed me slowly, leaving him in the entryway. Why are you here? She asked. I almost laughed. Why am I here? In the house I paid for. In the kitchen I tiled with my bare hands. In the life I built while she was sneaking off with a man who left his watch on my staircase. I sipped the water. She was flustered now. Fidgeting with her necklace. I was going to tell you. I just didn't expect. You brought him here? I said, my voice finally making an appearance. Her eyes darted away. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It never is, I replied. Then I set the glass down, calm-centered. Is that Zachary? He didn't answer. But the smirk vanished. I walked past her, went into the living room, and opened the drawer. Pulled out the watch. Held it up. This yours? He nodded, slow. Thanks, he muttered, taking it. His fingertips brushed mine. Cold. I stepped back. Ramona stood between us now, suddenly smaller, like her entire persona had deflated. I'll go, I said. She opened her mouth like she wanted to stop me. But she didn't know what to say. And that was the point. There was nothing left to say. So I walked to the door. No bags. No ceremony. No warning. Just a man leaving a room that no longer needed him. As I reached for the handle, she whispered something behind me. I didn't mean to fall in love with him. I turned just slightly, enough for her to see my profile. But you meant to stop loving me. Then I walked out. Into the rain. This time she didn't follow. The motel I checked into had no name on the sign. Just the word vacancy lit in red. It was 30 miles away from the house, tucked behind a rundown diner that only served 3 items and one of them was coffee. The room smelled like bleach and cigarette memory. The wallpaper curled at the corners. I paid cash. No ID. No questions. I lay there on the stiff mattress, shoes still on, jacket zipped, and stared at the water-stained ceiling until I could almost convince myself it was all a bad film. Maybe the kind I used to watch with her on lazy weekends when we still shared popcorn and silence comfortably. I blinked once. That memory didn't sting. Not anymore. It just felt like someone else's life. I didn't turn my phone off. I just left it on the nightstand. Face down. No lock. No notifications. No reason. For 2 days I didn't leave the room except to shower and buy a toothbrush from the vending machine in the hallway. On the third day I did something she never would have predicted. I vanished. I called my employer and quit. No details. Just a calm message, effective immediately, I will not be returning. Thank you for everything. I deleted my email accounts. I removed all linked cards. I transferred the money from our joint account to mine and then closed that too. Every dollar, every transaction trail, gone. I sold the truck. Cash. Then I mailed her the keys to the house. No note. No threats. Just the keys in a plain envelope. Postmarked from a different state. She wanted freedom? She'd get it. But not the kind you celebrate with champagne. The kind that wakes you at 2 a.m. in cold sweat when you realize someone stopped fighting for you without saying goodbye. And I didn't say goodbye. Instead, I created a new name. Not legal, just for function. I printed a new set of resumes under the name E. Win, took a bus west, shaved the beard I'd had since my 20s, and cut my hair down to nothing. I stared at my reflection in a gas station bathroom and couldn't recognize myself. That was the goal? No social media. No phone number. No digital shadow. I took work where it came, bar rack in Phoenix, night shift security in Vegas, part-time handyman for an old motel in Utah that paid under the table. I slept in places where no one knew my name and no one cared. And in the quiet hours when my hands weren't busy, I thought of her. But not with longing. With distance. There's a moment in every betrayal where something irreversible happens. Not the cheating itself. Not the lies. But the second they stop fearing the loss of you. She crossed that line when she brought him into our home. Into our life. Into my space. And I walked away before she could lock the door behind me. Sometimes people ask, why didn't you fight for her? And I want to answer because she stopped being someone worth fighting for. But I don't say that. I say nothing. Silence is the one language every guilty person eventually understands. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have known, was that vanishing wouldn't be the end. Because 3 weeks later, in a different state, under a different name, standing behind the register at a hardware store, I looked up and saw her. Ramona. In line. Holding a paint roller. Alone. And she looked right at me. And didn't recognize me at all. She was 5 feet away. Same eyes. Same birthmark near her left eyebrow. Same posture, slightly leaned to the right when she held something in her left hand. Ramona hadn't changed much in the 3 weeks since I disappeared. But her face had. She looked tired. No makeup. Her hair was pulled back carelessly, the kind of way she used to do when she wasn't trying to impress anyone. No designer coat. No confident smirk. Just jeans, old sneakers, and a faint line across her forehead that hadn't been there before. And still, she didn't recognize me. She looked straight at me, right in the eyes, like I was just another guy ringing up tools in a name-ag shirt that didn't quite fit. I scanned the roller she placed on the counter, handed her the receipt, and said, next in line. My voice was lower now. My tone colder. But still, not a flicker of recognition. She mumbled thanks and walked out. But she didn't leave the parking lot. I watched from behind the register. She sat in her car for a long time. Just sitting there, gripping the steering wheel with both hands, staring at the dashboard like it had something to say. Then she pulled out her phone. And she called someone. My coworker walked past me, laughing with a customer, and I missed the first part of her mouth's movement. But I caught the end. She said my name. I know lip patterns. You do after 13 years of looking at someone's face across breakfast tables, across dinner plates, across hospital rooms when your brother was sick and she was the one telling the nurses what medications he couldn't take. And that name, Ellis, was not meant to be said again. But she said it. Then she wiped her eyes. She started the car, then shut it off again. Then she got out and came back inside. I turned away before she opened the door. She didn't come to the register. She wandered the aisles for a while, pretending to shop, not really touching anything, just drifting, looking. Was she looking for me? No, that wasn't possible. She didn't recognize me. And yet, she walked past my aisle, slowly, and paused. We made eye contact again. She lingered this time. You ever work in Boulder? She asked suddenly. I froze. No, I said flatly. Just moved here a few weeks ago. She nodded, but not with certainty. With hesitation. You look like someone I knew. I get that a lot. She bit her lip. Sorry. Then she walked away. But the way she looked over her shoulder just once, halfway to the exit, wasn't casual. It was the kind of glance you give when your stomach starts asking questions your brain isn't ready to answer. She left. I stood behind that register for another 6 hours like nothing had happened. But everything had. Because something in her eyes told me the version of Ramona I had walked away from was not the one who walked through those doors today. She was unraveling. And I was no longer part of her story. Until the next morning when I found a letter taped to the front door of the hardware store. No envelope. Just folded once. Written in ink I knew too well. There were only 7 words. I think I saw you yesterday, Ellis. The letter was written in her handwriting. I recognized it before I even unfolded the page. Ramona's R's always dipped a little to the left and her S's curled like she was afraid of finality. That never changed even when everything else did. 7 words. That was all. I think I saw you yesterday, Ellis. I stood at the door holding it for too long. Long enough that my manager came outside with a box of replacement bulbs and asked if I was okay. I shoved the note in my pocket and nodded. He didn't press. I went back inside, but my head wasn't there anymore. That letter shouldn't have existed. She should have left. Miami was supposed to be permanent. Her new life, her new man, her new chapter. She wasn't supposed to double back into the wreckage she left behind. And yet, there it was. A letter. In handwriting she hadn't used for months. In a town I never told anyone I was headed to. In front of the store where I tried to erase myself. The worst part? She didn't sound angry. She sounded uncertain. That night, I left work early and walked 3 miles past the gas station, past the highway into a motel I'd never noticed before. Not because I was staying there, but because I remembered something from the previous week. A woman with dark hair had been sitting in the parking lot in a blue Honda Civic. The same make and model Ramona used to drive. I hadn't thought anything of it then. Just another face in the blur of strangers. But now? Now it gnawed at me. I asked the front desk clerk, a tired-looking guy with a name badge that read Kyle and a cold sore on his lip, if anyone had checked in under the name Crane. He frowned and shook his head. No Crane here. Why? Just curious, I said. He stared at me a beat too long. You okay, man? Always. But I wasn't. Not really. I walked past the lot, eyes flicking over windshields, license plates, shapes in rearview mirrors. Nothing. She was gone. If it was even her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept rereading the note like it was some ancient puzzle. Why leave just that? Why not confront me? Why not say more? And then it hit me. She did recognize me. But she wasn't sure if she was supposed to. She didn't want to be the first to admit it. To break the wall I had built. To make herself vulnerable in the way I had been when I found her standing in our home with a stranger and a suitcase. That made the next move mine. And I wasn't sure I wanted to make it. By morning, I'd made a decision. A strange one, even to me. I wrote her back. On a plain sheet of hardware store receipt paper. Small, white, and insignificant, the kind of thing you'd throw away unless you knew what to look for. My message was 4 words. If you're certain, knock once. I taped it to the front door of the store before opening shift, right where she'd left hers. No envelope. No flourish. Then I waited. Every knock that day, every customer, every delivery, every wind-tossed scrape of a branch on the metal frame made my pulse shift. But nothing came. Until 4:41 p.m. One knock. Sharp. Deliberate. Singular. I didn't move right away. Then I walked to the door, opened it. And she was there. Standing alone. No suitcase. No jewelry. Just Ramona. And in her eyes, not guilt. Not regret. But something worse. Desperation. She stood there like a person who'd rehearsed every word and then realized none of it mattered. Her hand was shaking slightly even though she kept trying to bury it in the pocket of her coat. Her eyes flicked to my name tag, Eric, then back to my face. I waited for her to speak. She didn't. Why now? I asked quietly. She blinked. I could tell she wasn't ready to hear my voice again. Maybe she'd built a version of me in her head, someone who would have disappeared into the dirt and stayed gone. Someone weak enough to vanish but too broken to watch her come back. But I hadn't broken. I didn't know you were here, she said finally. Her voice was low, almost hoarse. Not really. You wrote a letter, I said. I thought I imagined it. Seeing you. But then I couldn't sleep. I came back the next morning and watched you from my car. You moved like him. Like Ellis. And that was enough? Her mouth tightened. I didn't come here to beg. Or to fix anything. Then what did you come for? She looked at me then, really looked. Not the way a woman looks at a man she used to love. Not the way someone looks at a ghost. It was something colder. Sharper. I came to tell you not to go near Zachary. There it was. No apology. No confession. No explanation of what really happened in Miami or why she abandoned everything without saying a word. Just a warning. Why? I asked. He's not what you think, she said quickly. He's not just someone I left you for. That's not what this was. Not really. She took a step closer. After you left, he got worse. Controlling. He hated that I didn't make a clean break. That I hesitated. That I didn't sell the house fast enough. He started asking questions about you. Where you went. Who you talked to. If I was still in contact. I didn't speak. Just listened. She continued. And when I said I didn't know, he stopped believing me. He started following me. Checking my calls. Opening my mail. I watched her face. It was pale now. Not just tired, rattled. I thought disappearing would protect you. If he didn't think I knew where you were, he'd stop looking. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just afraid of Zachary. She was afraid of me being found by him. He was here. I asked. She nodded once, slowly. He followed me 2 days ago. Saw the roller in the passenger seat. I didn't lie fast enough. You brought him here? My voice rose, not in anger. In calculation. Because suddenly I wasn't standing in front of my former wife. I was standing in front of a woman who might have accidentally led something dangerous to my door. I didn't know you'd respond, she said. I didn't know you were still you. Why tell me now? Because I think he knows. That note you left me, he saw it. He didn't say anything. But he looked at me like he knew I wasn't imagining it. I stared at her for a long time. Longer than I needed. Then I turned away and locked the door behind me. Leave town, I said. Tonight. I thought you didn't care anymore. I don't, I replied. But I also don't want your mistakes ending up on my doorstep. She hesitated. Then she turned to go. But before she stepped off the curb, she looked back and said something so quiet I almost missed it. I never stopped checking for your name. On lists. On forums. Obituaries. I said nothing. She walked into the night. I stood there for a long time. Watching the street. Listening. But I already knew. She didn't bring danger. She let it. Because 5 hours later, someone slid an envelope under my door. And this time it wasn't from her. Inside was a photo of me at work. Taken from across the street. And beneath it, one line written in block letters. I see you too. I stared at the photo for a long time. The image was grainy, printed on cheap paper, the kind used in office break rooms and gas stations. My face was slightly turned, frozen mid-conversation with a customer holding a bucket of paint. I didn't look scared. I didn't look angry. I just looked alive. That, I realized, was the problem. Someone wanted me gone. Or invisible again. Or broken in a way that made them feel bigger. But I'd already done that. I'd already disappeared. I'd already been erased. And I didn't need to do it again. Not for her. Not for him. The next morning I made a decision. Not to fight. Not to run. To live. Truly. I walked into the store, handed my apron to Kyle, and said, I'm done. He asked no questions. Just nodded and wished me well. I walked out without looking back. I emptied my locker, grabbed the small duffel I kept under the cot in the storeroom, and left the keys on the bench. I drove west. Not fast. Not urgently. Just freely. Through valleys. Over quiet hills. Past places where no one knew my name and no one cared who I used to be. Somewhere outside Santa Fe, I pulled into a rest stop, tossed the envelope with the photo into a trash bin, and watched it flutter down like it meant nothing. Because it didn't. That chapter was over. In the weeks that followed, I found peace in strange places. A family-run cafe that let me fix shelves in exchange for warm coffee and a seat by the window. A bookstore owner who let me sleep in the loft above the fiction section while I helped sort old inventory. People who asked no questions, only gave me space, and slowly, gently, reminded me what it felt like to breathe without fear. And one morning, as the sun broke open over a dusty road and painted the desert gold, I met someone new. Not romantically, not yet. Just a conversation with a woman who wasn't trying to fix me or figure me out. She just wanted help starting her truck. And when I did, she smiled like I was human again. That was enough. I never heard from Ramona again. Never saw Zachary's face. Never found out what became of either of them. And honestly, that's the best ending I could ask for. Because some stories don't need confrontation. Some ghosts don't need to be exorcised. They just need to be left behind. In a house that doesn't belong to you anymore. On streets where your name no longer echoes. And in memories where your silence was the loudest thing you ever said. I never went back. Not even once. Because I didn't argue. I didn't beg. When she crossed the final line, without a word, I walked away, and this time, I never looked back.